What's going on, folks? Welcome to 4th and 16 Sports. I'm your host, Ellis Tolbert, coming to you live from Pronk Studios here in Greenville, South Carolina. I hope you guys are having a great night tonight. Got a great show for you tonight. We're going to be diving into a lot of things that need to be talked about. Some of these things are kind of interesting. Some of these things are status quo. We're also going to give you some picks tonight for the games coming up this weekend. A lot of important games happening. Again, hope you guys are having a great Tuesday night. We were off last week, but we're back strong. We're ready to go. Look, there's going to be some chaos with this Clemson-Notre Dame game this weekend. We're going to talk about some things that the Clemson offense needs to do. We might even get into some things that Notre Dame needs to do to win this game. So get in the comment section. Make sure you leave a comment, and we'll let you know if we're going to answer your question on air. Also, I got my main man, Fax and Childress, over here on the seat to talk with me. We're going to have some fun tonight. Fax, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Excited for this weekend. ACC championship game, playoff spot on the line. Got to go win a game this weekend. Yeah,
it's definitely one of those must-win games. But I talked about this on my podcast, Locked On Clemson Podcast. You want to check that out anywhere you find your podcast. I'm not sure that Clemson needs to win this game to get in. We'll get into that a little bit, though, but it'll be interesting going up. Of course, it's always good for conversation. All right, so we are streaming to you live from Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Also on Seldom Used Reserve. They are partners of ours. Great guys. Let's go ahead and get into the show. So first and foremost, we're going to talk about the Clemson offense. As of the last few weeks, Clemson's offense has shown that, hey, they're back in it. They took a little time off, and they showed that they have balance. They can do different things now. This is something that during that little stretch between Syracuse to Notre Dame, it was a little bit weird. It's like, I don't know what's going on. And then you coupled that with the fact that Trevor Lawrence wasn't there. Now you got him back. You got pretty much the entire team back outside of the guys that you already knew were going to be gone. They're going to be facing Notre Dame again in Charlotte this weekend, 4 o'clock on ABC, to take on the Fighting Irish. The winner of this game is a lock for the playoffs, right? But last time, it wasn't necessarily the offense that had trouble moving the ball. I mean, they put up 40-plus points on Notre Dame. It was more of the defense. However, you can't do the same things that you did last game to win it. So let's talk about some things that we need to improve on. Most importantly, I'm going to go ahead and start it. We've said this all year. You had approximately 1 yard per carry in this game against Notre Dame. That is unacceptable. You cannot do that if you're an elite team and expect to win. 1 yard per carry gets you in the loss column, and that's what happened. In this game, Travis Etienne was pretty much eliminated. I mean, I don't even think they threw the ball to Travis Etienne.
I would even go as far as saying he was a negative when you account for the fumble, and that's
yes.
And that's just something that the best running back in the nation cannot be. He can't be a negative, and it's not really indicative on him and what he was doing in the game. It was more offensive line just could not create any holes against that Notre Dame front for him to run through. Yeah,
you're right. And again, this Notre Dame defensive line is very good. Stout. Again, we're talking about a lot of the struggles with the offensive line this season happens along the interior O-line. That's a problem because you got 3 new guys there. You're going to be missing a guy in Simpson, Pollard, and Gage Cervenka. Now you're working with younger guys playing. Of course, you got Bockhorst, who's got experience. You've got Cade Stewart, who has experience. But on the other side, you have Will Putnam, who doesn't really have a lot of experience. So these guys over the season, it's been like a gelling game. They want to get these guys cohesive unit. The big beard gang is what they call them. We got to get these guys more efficient going on. I think the game against Virginia Tech showed us that they can actually run the ball. Virginia Tech's pretty bad at run defense anyway. It is what it is. But not taking away from anything, they looked good when they did do their responsibilities in the run game. But
can that translate?
Can that translate against even more superior D-line play? You're talking about Tagovailoa Amosa and Heinisch in the interior D-line for Notre Dame. I don't know if you're going to win that matchup. So you have to win. You have to be just at least consistent in your technique, and I think that's all that matters in this one.
I mean, it's really indicative on what Tony Elliott thought of the Tigers' offensive line and run game in the previous matchup against Notre Dame. As a true freshman, 18 years old, walking into South Bend, DJ Uiagalelei threw the ball more than 40 times, and he threw for 400 yards. This was just really indicative on the lack of trust that he's had in Travis Etienne in the run game to get going. But I feel like that trust has been established and kind of bought back by this offensive line in the run game due to the fact that, like you said, they had a big game against Virginia Tech. And in these last couple of games, they've looked to be getting going. So I'm going to be looking out for these first couple drives of the game on Saturday. what are the Tigers going to do on offense, and are they going to try and establish the run early? And if they do, are they going to stray from that quickly if it doesn't work, or are they going to try and stick to it?
Yeah, and that's a very big deal. So we did talk about this. I mean, it's impressive. A true freshman goes up to South Bend and puts up the most passing yards on a Notre Dame defense ever in history. That's impressive. But at the same time, there were times where, hey, that's really cool, but in the last drive of the game where you absolutely needed some yards, just get the yards, they couldn't do it. So that's why I'm saying the Clemson balance is going to be there. Now, a lot of that is predicated off of the interior O-line. We talk about that ad nauseum. But a lot of that has to do with the RPO game. Clemson is an RPO offense. Trevor Lawrence can hold that mesh read a little bit longer because he can process the field much faster than a guy like DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
And it's
right?
not discrediting DJ. Fantastic player, going to be the Tigers quarterback for the next 2-3 years. Just ridiculously talented. But there were a few plays in that last Notre Dame game, specifically the Cornell Powell play on the RPO over the middle. You got to think that it would have been a 75-yard touchdown if Trevor Lawrence was on the field. And once again, that's not hating on DJ. Kid played a great game, but Lawrence is making that read to pull it out and throw it to Powell down the seam, and Clemson scoring a touchdown on that play. And it's just plays like that where obviously Trevor Lawrence is going to go number 1 in the NFL draft for a reason. Not having him is always going to hurt no matter who the backup is. So it'll be great for the Tigers to have him back on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. And so we talked a little bit about that. Again, Notre Dame is very, very big on coming at you with pressure along the line. The linebacker core is fantastic. Lou Fowl is one of the best linebackers in the ACC. But they have combo coverages in the back. They're going to roll guys in different spots. They're not going to play Clemson with the same kind of coverage schemes that they did last time. In fact, I think they might do the exact opposite of what they did with DJ. They didn't lead. They left everybody, hey, let's just kind of chill, throw everybody backwards. We're going to run backwards and play some zone defense. I don't see that happening in this game. They know that Trevor Lawrence can, if DJ Uiagalelei can throw for 411 yards, Trevor could probably throw for 500 yards.
Trevor would definitely be able to dissect that zone. I think you're going to see a lot more man defense in this game,
too,
and press coverage possibly from these Notre Dame DBs. And we talked about this in the preview for the last show we did about the Notre Dame game. These Notre Dame corners are not impressive, and they are not fast. There is going to be big play potential on the field if they come out and press coverage and look for Cornell Powell. If Amari Rogers, E.J. Williams, these guys are lined up on the outside, they're going to be able to beat these guys in assignments, and big play possibility for the Tigers.
Absolutely. And, again, get in the comment section. We want to hear from you. We'll try to talk with you guys. Got my main man, Clemson Tom, in the comment section. He says, need a huge defensive game from the linebackers. That's about it.
We saw the linebacking core
one
last game, and we saw how Kylan Williams ran all over the Tigers. Need Skalski to play the whole game. Need Mike Jones to play the whole game. And if those two guys have a good game, I think the Tigers are going to win comfortably.
Yeah, and we also need to see this youth be developed. Of course, we've had to play younger guys. Jake Venables has to step in for Jamie Skalski for the last few games, but now he's out for the season with a broken arm. Terrible injury, but he's going to be fine for next season. But now you got to have some other guys step up. Again, that point of attack is what's going to win the game for you. You're going to get a guy like Tyler Davis back, which is going to change the game, especially with Notre Dame having their center be out for this game. You're going to have an advantage in that spot. Tyler Davis is one of the better defensive tackles in the country. Now you have Jamie Skalski back, and even if Jamie Skalski's about 90%, he still reacts faster. It's kind of like Trevor Lawrence. He sees the field faster. He can see holes faster than a guy like Kane Patterson or a Jake Venables was. Now, Kane Patterson is the backup now. It's going to be critical that when he spells, if Jamie Skalski, for any reason, if he has to come out, is ready to go. He has to play hard-nosed. Sometimes you just got to be wrong, but be wrong 100% of the time, 100 miles an hour. Go ahead and plug up those holes because that's what Notre Dame wants to do. They're going to come into this game and try and run the ball.
You can't be indecisive as a linebacker, especially against a team that runs the ball this well. And I'm just excited to see him out there again. I mean, it's been it will be going on 14 days since Clemson football after that Virginia Tech game, so it'll be a really fun game to watch.
Absolutely.
And the spread on that game is Clemson is currently favored by 11, and the line opened at 7 in Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say that 11 points is accurate. I think if anything, both teams have storylines to talk about. So for against, we talked about it in the beginning. The winner of this game is going to the playoffs.
Oh, 100%.
The loser could position themselves in. Notre Dame already has a much better chance of getting to the playoffs with a loss than Clemson does. So on paper, it would seem like, oh, well, Notre Dame doesn't care. They're going to get in the playoffs anyway.
I don't see a scenario where
I don't see
Clemson
that. I
gets
see
in.
them wanting to come in and establish dominance and say, hey, we run this and we want to win. We're not paper tigers. On the other side, I feel like the same thing's going on. Clemson lost that game, but everybody's saying, oh, well,
They didn't have Trevor.
You didn't have Trevor. You didn't have Jamie Skalski or Tyler Davis. Now you have those guys. So if you don't win it, then it looks like it didn't matter in the first place. Notre Dame is just a better team than you. And if that happens, that's fine. But then you start getting dicey for Clemson. They have to put their schedule up. I believe that Ohio State's getting in the playoffs regardless. Check them in. But then you start dicing it up with teams like Texas A&M. I still feel like Clemson could potentially have a better resume than Texas A&M, even if they lost to Notre Dame, because Texas A&M's one loss was to Alabama. Sure, that's the number one team in the country, but it wasn't competitive at all.
Yeah.
You talk about Iowa State, who had 2 touchdown loss to Louisiana Lafayette. That's unacceptable. You talk about Cincinnati, who hadn't played in a while. I don't know how to feel about them. So I feel like Clemson has a chance, but you don't want that. So you just want to go ahead and go full bore, play the game and win it. That way it's in your hands and you don't have to worry about other things falling in your lap. So again, I don't know that 11 points is accurate. That's too much to me. I know a lot of people on the orange colored glasses train wants to say things like Clemson's going to put up 60 points on them now. I don't know about that. I think Notre Dame is also playing for their respect.
Clemson did only have 33 in regulation with DJ. That score line is inflated from the perspective of it went to double overtime.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a game where Clemson is going to hover around that 40 points mark. And when they do hover around that 40 points mark, I'm hoping that the defense can do enough for Clemson to win the game. I don't know if they can.
We got Daniel Seekins over the comment section on YouTube. He says needs to run the ball more. 1, deep crossing routes go to behind go routes. 2, pop passes to Amari, open up the running lanes, open up the playbook. I think as an addition to all that, good comment, Derek. I think in addition to that, Daniel, getting Travis Etienne the ball in other ways than just handing it off to him on first down. Seriously, what did they do earlier in the year when teams are stacking the box and trying to neutralize Clemson? They were literally throwing the ball to Travis Etienne. He's had a couple of games where he had more receiving yards than he had rushing yards. You got to get the ball in your best player's hands at all times. And right now, your absolute best player, I don't care if his stats are low, 766 yards. He has almost 500 yards receiving. Make him do that. Get him the ball in the open space. He's going to make somebody miss. So I think that's a good statement, Daniel. I think so too.
We do have our playoff rankings.
We have the rankings
coming
in
live.
now.
Yes. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Notre Dame. Number 3, Clemson. Number 4, Ohio State. Number 5, Texas A&M. So top 5 is the same. Iowa State has jumped up to number 6.
Okay.
And Florida only drops to 7.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying here. This is why when I said this earlier, everybody's like, what are you talking about? Clemson, and I said this in the Locked On Clemson podcast. Go check that out. Seriously, if Clemson loses a tight game that is a fireworks game, I'm talking about back and forth just like that last one in South Bend, and it's like a 3-point loss or a 1-point loss. To me, you would have lost to the number 4 and number 2 team in the country in a few weeks, separation, right, in a weird COVID year. You put that up against Texas A&M's one loss to Alabama that was ugly. I'm talking about blowout loss. You put that up against Iowa State, who already has 2 losses, and then could potentially, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this out. I wouldn't put Iowa State ahead of Clemson.
From a Clemson perspective, it's really good that Iowa State lost to that Lafayette game because they would definitely get in over Clemson if they won the championship.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Especially against Oklahoma, beating Oklahoma twice.
I do think that what you're saying has legitimacy, especially with Florida showing last week. That's a very crucial thing because that's Texas A&M's key win. That's their marquee win.
Yep.
You know, it wasn't the 5-point win over Vanderbilt because they're not very good. It was the win over Florida in which they got a lucky fumble because they were about to give up a game-winning field.
Right, and don't get me wrong. Texas A&M is a really good football team. Am I putting them in the top 4 as the top 4 elite teams in the country? Probably not. And I'm not just hating on them for all you Texas A&M fans that might be watching. I'm not hating
Texas
on you.
Texas A&M is the 5th best team in the country.
Yeah, I think they're like the 5th best team. I think they're definitely they're better than Florida because they have a more complete team. They have we saw this on the field. They have not a better offense.
Now, let me post something. What if Iowa State had spring practice and they come out prepared for that Louisiana Lafayette game and win that game? Are we going to say that they're better than Texas A&M? Because I think that would be a conversation to be had.
Maybe.
Because what Brock Purdy and Breece Hall are doing right now in Iowa State is special. They're killing it.
Maybe, but then we don't also want to discount the loss itself. So, or the fact that teams are winning. So, for instance, again, I'm not going to take the Florida win away from Texas A&M. I'll never do that. Up until this point, everybody thought Florida had a chance to not only upset Alabama, but also win the Heisman in the same year and get in the playoffs. Now, I think that's all dashed. Because, again, you put Clemson up against that 2 losses, you lost to LSU. That's unacceptable. Now, granted, that was some boneheaded mistakes from one of your players. We're really not even going to get into that too much. But one of the worst plays ever, and you just melt down, right? But, again, I think Clemson, if we're talking about this, Clemson has the upper hand on them, even if they lose the game. And again, it has to be a compelling game. I'm not saying Clemson can go out there and lose by 2 scores and get in the playoffs over some of these other schools, because then you would be weighing,
if you're a Clemson fan,
Iowa State over that.
You need to be pulling for Tennessee this weekend against Texas A&M. That's the dream.
That's a good point.
That's the dream scenario, because if
point.
Tennessee wins this weekend, I think that Clemson's in regardless. I don't think it matters.
I'm just going to say
I think
this.
at that point it's just a seeding competition.
If Tennessee wins this weekend, Jimbo Fisher needs to have his bags packed immediately.
You think so?
Yeah.
They've had a good season.
You can't lose. No, they have not. Tennessee has been awful.
I'm talking about A&M. A&M's had a good season.
But that's what I'm saying. It's almost like
this might be the best season in the Jimbo era.
It is. No, it's definitely. But I don't see it. We got in the comment section, Tony West. He says Clemson's got to attack Notre Dame in a deep passing game. Yeah.
We said this before the last game. Those corners are slow. Deep shots.
I'm not a fan of Bracey or McLeod.
You probably saw that Tony Elliott was a bit hesitant because at the beginning of the game last time against Notre Dame, obviously you're trying to establish the run.
Yeah.
And Clemson, you got to remember, Clemson is, whether people like to admit this or not, Clemson is mega conservative 90% of the time.
Yes.
Mega conservative. We're going to run the ball. We're going to throw 15 yards over the middle of the field. We're going to throw bubble screens. Deep shot has not really been in the arsenal since Tony Elliott has taken over sole command of the playbook.
Right.
But I think that could change this weekend. You got really favorable matchups on the outside, and it just really sucks because I wish we had Justin Ross. If we had Justin Ross, I think he might go for 200 yards.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing too. That's why people keep asking, when is he going to be healthy? When's he going to be healthy? He's not playing this year, folks. If you're a Clemson fan, you want Justin Ross to play. He's not playing this year. We're just hoping that he can play in general in the future. Blessings go out to that kid. But no, I think they need to establish the run, but not necessarily try and do the whole we're going to run on first down, we're going to run on second down thing, because then you're playing behind the sticks.
If you run on first down and you get stuffed and it's 2nd and 8+, please do not run the ball.
The only thing that's going to make me feel better about Clemson's average yards per carry against Notre Dame is them getting quarterback runs into the game. Of course, the last game, DJ Uiagalelei was hurt. He could not run. Trevor Lawrence is going to run. So if you get that, again, with that slow mesh read, once he gets to the mesh point, if he slows it down, that's got to freeze the D-line. They can't go too far. If they over-pursue, he ends it off. If they over-pursue and they're too wide, he can run the ball. If they stay where they are, he can pop it right over the head. Again, we're talking about those short passes. So when you have a guy like Trevor Lawrence in there, you can make that decision. Plus, I think the mesh point in handing off the ball with Travis Etienne would be even better, because I don't think the rapport is there with DJ and Travis yet. I think that's got to grow. But we might not see it this year if Trevor stays healthy. Hopefully we won't. But yeah, again, I think Clemson has a shot to do this. Folks, again, thank you for joining us tonight. We're having fun over here. Get in the comment section. We want to hear you. We want to see what you got to say. We're having fun over here. Look, we're going to talk about another topic that's kind of strange. I woke up to it and I was like, that's weird. Chase Bryce, former Clemson quarterback, who led the 2018, well, he didn't lead it, but he was a big part of the comeback against Syracuse in 2018, transferred to Duke. As of yesterday, he's transferring away from Duke, and he's on the market again. I don't know what's going on. I wish the kid the best, but that's not necessarily a good thing, especially when—
He should have never gone to Duke.
Well, he should have never gone to Duke, and we knew this. We talked about this too.
They have no talent.
But his stats don't make it's just not that great. You're not a big sell anymore.
He hasn't been great.
10 touchdown passes to 15 interceptions. That's bad. That's real bad. That's Ryan Leaf type stuff. Look, I'm just saying this. I think Chase Bryce can transfer. He has a lot of places that he can go to and play football. That's fine. But there's only a certain amount of Power 5 schools that can accept him because, again, remember, a lot of kids are getting to stay. That you get that extra year, so some people are not leaving.
What he should have done is he should have gone to South Florida with Jeff Scott.
He should have gone to South Florida, or he has an opportunity to do this. There's a few schools in the group of 5 that are competitive that he can probably go to. Look at teams like Appalachian State. Quarterback's going to be gone after this year. Georgia State, in the state that he's from, quarterbacks are all freshmen and redshirt freshmen. He could probably go there. He has more experience. I think if he transfers somewhere, he probably needs to go outside of the Power 5. If he goes to the Power 5, I wouldn't consider it crazy.
Virginia's got their guy.
Virginia's got their guy.
Virginia
Brennan
Tech's
Armstrong.
got their guy.
Louisville has Mikhail Cunningham.
Obviously not Clemson.
Not Clemson.
Not Notre Dame.
Not Notre Dame.
Wait, that could work.
Could he go to Notre Dame?
I mean, Book's leaving.
Book is leaving.
Well, presumably.
And Djokovic left.
Presumably, Book's leaving.
No, Book's gone. He's gone. He played himself into the draft this year. He's not going to be a top 10 quarterback, but he played himself to a draft spot
He'll get
this
in the
year.
4th or 5th round.
Yeah, he's got a shot now. His height might hurt him a little bit, but obviously we've seen height is not that big of a deal in the NFL
anymore.
I just don't know that many schools in the Power 5 outside of that. I mean, you even go to Pac-12. I mean, Tyler Shuff at Oregon. He's not going to go to Washington State and run an air raid with Rolovich. He's not going to play at USC because Slovis is there, and he's the best quarterback in college football outside of Trevor Lawrence. I don't know where there's a spot, but I wish the kid good luck. And, you know, I think he will be a good quarterback for someone. He just didn't have the weapons around him at Duke. And I'm thinking that Cutcliffe has about 3 or 4 more years in him, and then he's done too. So we're looking forward to that. Let's go ahead and talk about another thing that we saw over the past, 72 hours, is Auburn fired Gus Malzahn. I made this whole thing about Auburn, you need to fire Gus Malzahn, and they did it. But then they promoted Kevin Steele. And right now his name is in the running for it. And I don't know that I see that.
That's not the correct call. They needed outside hires needed, and they also did this at the worst possible time recruiting-wise.
Yeah, like
it's almost like you're throwing a class away.
Yeah, you literally have.
This is
how
worse
far
than
away from
we came on here and bashed
signing?
South Carolina for their. No, this is 20 million times worse than firing Will Muschamp. Like the timing of this could not possibly be worse if you tried. A bunch of people are probably going to decommit now.
Well,
they didn't have a great class to begin with.
I think he was already handicapped. So you bring in a guy like Bo Nix, and you had Joey Gatewood. You're going to start Bo Nix because his father was a legendary player at Auburn. You can't not do it. And I'm not saying that Bo Nix is not a good quarterback. I'm saying that he might not have been the best quarterback on the roster. You had Malik go up to Liberty and put up a ton of numbers. You had Joey Gatewood go to Kentucky. Of course, he didn't beat out Terry Wilson, but Terry Wilson, in my opinion, is a better quarterback than Bo Nix. So now it's one of those things where, you have this shiny new toy at quarterback, win games for us. And I honestly think that blowout against Alabama, looking forward ahead to some things that we might have not seen, I think that Auburn was like, hey, we might as well go ahead and jump the gun. We might be able to get somebody. Usually when you do that, when you fire a coach just like that, when you owe a lot of money, it's because you have a guy in mind, right?
Chadwell.
But I don't think they're going to do Jamie Chadwell, coach of Coastal Carolina.
Should.
I don't think they'll do that. You know what I think?
I feel like Bo Nix would fit perfectly into that Grayson McCall
he
role.
would, because he's a runner.
In the hybrid triple option.
But the only thing I'll say is I think they're going big-minded. You're not going to fire a coach who was your winningest coach at Auburn and who's got a national championship for you. He's got an appearance at a national championship as the head coach. You can't fire that guy without getting somebody else. I mean, obviously it is what it is. Some guys have gotten fired for, chump change. I don't know, but I didn't see them doing it at this point. Not this point. So there's some guys that they're trying to get. Of course, the one name that's swirling around yet again, Hugh Freeze, Liberty. I think they want Hugh Freeze so bad to leave Liberty, and he's just like, leave me alone, I'm fine.
I think Hugh Freeze could take that job.
I think Hugh Freeze is going to get a lot more money than what they could offer.
He's a lot more likely to take that job than all the deluded Carolina fans that thought he would just pack up everything and go to South Carolina.
Gosh. Yeah.
At least Auburn, they're a storied program. They've got a national championship last decade.
Yeah.
And an appearance where they probably should have beat Florida State in that game as well. So,
yeah.
I mean, and you can get recruits down there.
Yeah. I don't know that I find it weird that if you fired him because he's not competitive with Jimbo Fisher, you're just a little delusional. I think that's just wrong. We got Bobby Mahurin, and YouTube says Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is not coaching at Auburn. No, he's not going up against Nick Saban every year for a chance for a title. There's zero chance that he does that. You think about when he was at Ohio State. What other coach outside of D'Antonio really gave him struggles on that side of the division? Drew, you're in the back. Who made Ohio State cower in fear? Well, Tom Allen, Kevin Wilson, who's the Indiana coach, who's now on the staff. He just hired people that would give him nightmares.
Purdue gave him a little bit of
Purdue did, Braum, but that was one time, and then I don't know that that'll ever happen again, not with the way they're doing things. Braum's, it's tanking a little bit over there.
They don't have a quarterback.
And they don't have Rondale Moore after this, so it's an issue.
They got David Bell. He's pretty good.
You need more than that, and you got to have somebody to throw him to. Maybe Chase Bryce? I don't know. Aiden's a decent quarterback, but
Chase Bryce should have gone to Purdue last year.
Well,
he would have put up numbers this year.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think if you're them, you got to look at guys like Hugh Freeze. You got to give him a shot. You got to give a guy like Steve Sarkisian. I'm telling you, he's turned things around for Alabama and himself. I mean, when he was at Washington, he was a basket case. Things were just out. It's insane, right? But now I feel like he's on the right track. I think he's got the right experience. And we know how Nick Saban can get his coaches in other jobs. I think he might get a look somewhere. And then you got to look at a guy like Jamie Chadwell. Why not? Urban Meyer, I think that's I don't know about that, right?
Kind of going based off that Sark that you were talking about, Alabama, Florida is this weekend.
Ooh, we'll see.
Kind of transition into, do you think Florida has any, because based off of what I saw last week, I don't think Florida has any chance.
No. I think the reason why Florida doesn't have a chance is because they're going to get 70 hung on them by Alabama's offense.
And also, Florida's offense, relatively unimpressive and kind of down to earth last week after being, I would say, close to best in the nation previously.
Yeah.
34 on that LSU defense isn't impressive.
No. And not only that, but they were without Derek Stingley in the secondary and had two interceptions on Kyle Trask. Look, I've said this too. I thought Kyle Trask, prior to that game, was going to win the Heisman. He was going to win it. His numbers are ridiculous. He has almost like 3,800 yards and 40 touchdown passes. The next closest is literally Dylan Gabriel, and he has 10 less touchdown passes. So it's a big deal that he didn't look that good in that game and suffered yet another loss. Of course, we know Lamar Jackson won the Heisman in 2016 with his video game numbers. We all know that, but his team was also not very good. But when voters were paying the most attention early on, he had already won it. He outplayed Deshaun Watson in the game in 2016. Numbers-wise, it didn't matter. You still took an L. And then all the games before that, Charlotte, Syracuse, Florida State, he had enough numbers to go ahead and win it then. I think Kyle Trask had went the distance, and now, you said this all year, I think it's a Mac Jones award. I don't know that anybody else can beat, because I think Mac Jones is going to, against that traffic cone defense of Florida, he's going to have 1 million yards passing.
He deserves it.
He's going to win it.
Being completely honest, he deserves it. He's on the best team in the country. I know this is Clemson primarily. They're the best team in the country right now.
They are.
There's no debating
right now
that.
They are.
They have the best offense in the country. He's put up the numbers, and they've won. And there's nothing more you can look for in that award. If Trevor would have stayed healthy, I have a feeling, and by healthy I mean COVID, if he wouldn't have contracted it.
Well, Trevor was the leader up until
and he had it
Boston
all.
College.
If Trevor would have not gotten COVID, he had the Heisman Trophy handed to him.
Look, and I'll say this too, and I said this on the podcast.
He could still win it.
DJ Uyung, he could win it. If he has a great game against Notre Dame, you got to talk about all the extra outside stuff too, what he's done for college football.
If Trevor goes for 450 and 5 on Saturday, he's got a good chance.
And not only this, but he has been the most successful quarterback in college football right now, with his record being 32-1. He's 8-0 this year. He didn't lose to Notre Dame. He didn't lose that game. But I'm saying this. He gets a million yards passing against this Notre Dame defense, and his team gets into the playoffs as the number two team likely. He's going to win the Heisman because of, like I said, all the other things around him. You got in the comment section, do you think in Notre Dame's defensive coordinator Clark Lee taking the Vandy job hurts Notre Dame against Clemson? No, I think he's going to get hyper-focused about it because he knows one of those things where, well, I'm going to leave this job. Or maybe he does the whole 2-week notice thing that people do when they they're leaving their job.
I don't know why you would announce that or take that job now. It just seems like a distraction.
I think you take that job now for recruiting purposes.
Yeah.
So you want to get in there as soon as possible. Start talking to the recruits. Try to keep who you want.
I think he could have got a better job than Vanderbilt, surely.
Well, he's a Vanderbilt alum. He played fullback there.
Yeah.
So it's appealing, and he's from Nashville too. So it's like you go home.
It's like your hometown.
You don't got to go. You don't have to be in South Bend, Indiana. There's nothing to do there. You can go back home and coach your hometown team. Now, the last defensive coordinator that had a lot of success in calling plays had a really bad time that's Derek Mason. I mean, he got kicked out, right? So I don't know that it's going to work out, but Clark Lee is a really good coach. We'll just see what's going to happen with that. But we're going to move along with that too, because I want to go back one more time to the Florida thing. I think Florida could put up 30 to 40 points on Alabama's defense.
My prediction is 63-37.
I was going to say something like that, 62-38. Because I feel like
I don't think they're going to stop them one time.
I don't think so either. And, Max Johnson, a true freshman with a hobbled hip in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, put up that many points against this Florida defense. I'm sorry. And then Cade York with the cannon leg with a 57-yard field goal in this game. I mean, he makes that field goal in the fog, and your kicker can't even make a, less than 40-yard field goal without the fog in your own home stadium? That's upsetting, honestly. But I don't think they're going to beat them. So we'll go ahead and talk about this, too, because we need to get into the game picks. Let's talk about some game picks tonight. Let's start with the ACC. Again, Clemson taking on Notre Dame in Charlotte, 4 p.m. This is probably the conference championship game that's going to shape the college football playoffs, because I don't think it matters what happens if Florida beats Alabama. If Florida beats Alabama, Alabama's getting in, Florida's not. That's not going to happen, right? I think Clemson, again, that spread is 11. I don't know if I'll do that, but I do think Clemson's going to win this game. I know, Homer. But I feel like Clemson knows it's hard to beat a team twice in the same season. It's really hard.
I'm going to say 45-34 Tigers.
I can't even put a score on this one. I'm just going to say it's definitely going to be less than 11 points or whatever crazy spread it is right now. That doesn't mean Clemson isn't good. It just means that Notre Dame is really fighting for their respect right now. Mm-hmm. So, and the same thing, we've seen this in the conference championship game. For the last 2 years, have been blowouts because we played teams that shouldn't have been there, right? But before that, Virginia Tech, it was a very, very nail-biter game. They kept coming back with Gerard Evans. You go to North Carolina the year before that, if not for a onside kick, the game's crazy. So, again, I'm going to go with Clemson in this one in a very tight game. Next up, Alabama versus Florida in Atlanta.
Blowout city. I'm saying 21 points easily. If Florida somehow covers it, I don't even know what the spread is. I'm just going to go ahead and say I feel like Alabama's going to put up a lot of points. They're also playing for their supremacy. Again, they've missed the play. They got blown out by Clemson in 2018, missed the playoffs in 2019. It's like this is their year to do it, and they're coming back with a vengeance, too. They've got multiple guys on that offense that can really, really wreak havoc. Devontae Smith should be in the Heisman running, too, honestly, probably just as much as Mac Jones should. They got a plethora of running backs, and he did all that without Jalen Waddle. I got Alabama big in this one. Alabama
Not
big.
even close. This is a farce. We might be dumb next week, but even if they beat Alabama, Alabama will not drop any further than 3 or 4. I got Texas A&M versus Tennessee, game that's being made up. I think Texas A&M is a better team.
They're going to win by
than
14.
Tennessee. They're going to win, but multiple scores. I think right now Texas A&M's defense might actually be the best, which is not saying a whole lot, but it is the best in the SEC. Their offense is really consistent, but not explosive. They're not going to wow you with anything that they do. They're not very vertical. That's the problem. Chapman being out, not really having a whole lot of other guys outside of Aeneas, and they really don't hand the ball off to anybody outside of Spiller.
This game will probably be 35-20.
I think this is going to be a very boring game for Texas A&M fans. They're going to be like, you know what?
They're going to handle business.
This sucks.
They're going to handle
Why am I watching this game?
They're going to handle business and be anxiously watching our game.
That's right.
So
yeah, that's right.
That's
going to be. And again, that's why I said the ACC game is going to shape the playoffs.
Yep.
Next, we got Ohio State versus Northwestern. Of course, this game is very contentious. Ohio State in their spot for the playoffs. They're just kind of being shooed in anyway.
Their game's this is going to be a 30-point game.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know that. I think I think Northwestern's defense is actually decent. Their
I don't think
offense
they
is
can
not going to put
score.
up nearly enough points on Ohio State, but I don't think Ohio State's going to be. I don't think it's going to be like a 52-21 game. I just don't see that.
I think
Maybe so. I don't know. Ohio State usually when they get angry and Ryan Day knows, hey, we're jockeying for our spot.
Listen, they're going to be.
They're probably
This is why I think that they're going to win big in this game. I feel like they are not going to take their foot off the gas, and I feel like Day is going to think to ensure our playoff spot, because we're only going to have 6 wins, we need to run it up and we need to score points.
Yeah, because it is part of the eye test too. Yeah.
I feel like this score line could be not as indicative on how close the game was, but if it gets late and out of hand, I still think they're going to be chucking the ball down the field.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But at the same time, you want to be careful about that because if you do get in the playoffs, remember, you don't have as many reps this season as other teams that would be in the playoffs. You want to keep your guys healthy because I don't know that they've got a lot of playable depth right now. Of course, it looked really good against Michigan State. They had a lot of players out, but it's also Michigan State. They were wearing those terrible jerseys, but I think Ohio State probably wins this game by, I would say, 2 scores, maybe 3.
Yeah.
I think Northwestern's going to play hard, but I still don't think they have a shot. I'm not saying that they have a shot to beat Ohio State. I don't think so, especially not with Ohio State having a jockey to get in the playoffs. Next up is Oklahoma versus Iowa State. Iowa State, obviously, what are they, number 5, 6 now?
In this game, like
this is a big deal for them.
Both of these teams shot themselves in the foot big time.
Yes.
Oklahoma lost to an unranked K-State at home, and Iowa State lost to an unranked Louisiana Lafayette at home. If this was 1 win versus 1 win, this game would have massive implications because we would be talking about, does the winner of this game get in over Notre Dame if they lose? But that's not the case because they both dropped those
Honestly,
games.
This game comes down to which defense plays best. And I know that's a Big 12 thing, but honestly, these are probably the 2 best defenses.
No, they've got a defense in Norman now.
Yeah.
There's a legitimate defense in Norman.
And, we already know that Iowa State's defense has been historically good.
Yeah.
Now it comes down to that defense and which quarterback makes the least mistakes.
I'm going to take
Spencer Rattler.
I'm going to take
Brock Purdy. I think Brock Purdy's going to do it, especially if they come out with those black jerseys, man.
Oh, those are sweet.
Sick. And you got Breece Hall, who was one of the best running backs.
Breece
I think he leads the country, right?
Season, yeah. He
so,
has the most rushing yards and touchdowns of the country, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So it's a big deal. And it's crazy considering how many yards like Michael Carter and Javonte Williams that North Carolina has. Those guys are ridiculous. But I think this is going to come down again to the defense and which quarterback makes the least amount of mistakes. I'm going to go with a guy who's got more experience, and I'm going to go with Brock Purdy. I think Iowa State wins this one. I don't think it's a shootout. I don't think it's 42-45. I think it's probably more like 38-24.
Something like that.
And I see that happening. Coastal Carolina versus Louisiana Lafayette. Both coaches are playing for auditions for other jobs. Jamie Chadwell and Billy Napier.
They went down to Louisiana earlier this year and won on a game-winning field goal in extremely dramatic fashion.
I mean,
I would be stupid to pick against this team right now.
I can't do it, especially with them, what they did against BYU. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, well, you played at home in those last – the way they beat BYU, the size difference between the teams were huge. It's like an FCS team playing a D1 team. It's what it looked like. And for all intents and purposes, Coastal Carolina hasn't been a team for very long. So it's one of those things where they just manhandled BYU for the most part. I've got to give it to Coastal Carolina. That's not to say Lafayette. They've played
Louisiana's
fantastic season.
They're fantastic
right?
team.
But I'm going to say this is a nail-biter again. I think this is going to come down to the wire.
Coastal's offensive line is too good. They're too
and they
good
got
in the
that
trenches.
5'9", 300-pound center.
Yeah.
I love it.
That graphic that they showed in the BYU game where it's like, and the nose tackle for BYU was like 6'4",
Yeah.
and he was 5'9", and he won the matchup.
He won the matchup. Low center of gravity, man. You got to win it. That's what I want Clemson to do. I think Coastal Carolina is going to win this one in a close game again.
Yeah.
And they're going to win the Sun Belt, and it's going to be awesome.
34-28, something like that.
I wouldn't even say that. I would say 34-31.
Yeah.
Because, again, both teams can score. Both teams have really good defenses.
Yeah.
But it's just going to come down to which one gets the break, I guess a turnover. Again, both coaches are playing for jobs at other places. Maybe they stay at their own place. Who knows? Billy Napier doesn't have to go anywhere. Jamie Chadwell doesn't have to go anywhere. They have led 2 teams that have become really good and are going to get respect here on out. But there's a lot of jobs opening up. These guys have got to get picked up by somebody or they're dumb. Lastly, we got Oregon versus USC in the Pac-12 game that literally means absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of college football this year. Of course, Oregon was replacing Washington because Washington did not have enough players. Oregon could have settled this last time by playing Washington as they were supposed to, but Washington didn't have enough players, so the game was canceled. When that game was canceled, Washington was like, hey, we're the de facto winners because we've only lost once. Oregon lost to Cal and Oregon State, which is egregious. Now Oregon's playing a 5-0 USC team with Keaton Slovis leading a lot of comeback wins. It was close against UCLA.
Listen,
that was a battle of the LA right there.
This show is forever going to be the Keaton Slovis fan club.
Forever.
This guy is
I will stand that guy for all eternity.
He's incredible. But
Oregon...
Yeah, the USC team is not great.
No.
Don't get it twisted. The
Oregon,
USC team is not great.
If they play the way up to their capability, if they play to their, standard, I think they win this game by almost, I'd say, 10 to 14 points, because I feel like they're going to be riding that, hey, we got disrespected this year type deal because we lost these crazy games. You should have never lost to Cal. You definitely shouldn't have lost to Oregon State. I feel like UCLA has been teetering the line of getting beat a couple times this year, and I think that Oregon might end up doing it. Again, ultimately, I'm coming down to the playoffs with all these games. Again, Oregon, USC doesn't matter for the playoffs. Coastal Carolina, honestly, should be considered if they win this game, but they're not going to. Oklahoma State and Iowa State. Iowa State obviously has been put in position to get a shot into the playoffs. They win that game, then they are going to be watching the game just as much as Texas A&M is between Clemson and Notre Dame. But either one of those teams, if Clemson loses a close game, I'm just saying this. They lose a really close game to Notre Dame. I'm talking about something happened and everybody's like, what? And Dabo's throwing up his card and it's like, no way, that's wrong. Clemson's getting in the playoffs. I just think they get in the playoffs. But as I said earlier, we'll round it all the way back. You win the game, it's in your hands. You don't have to worry about anybody else losing. So you got to win.
This is essentially the kickoff to the playoffs.
Yeah.
This is a playoff game.
Yeah. So to me, this is why I think Clemson wins it, not just because they, you want them to, but they understand. And usually Clemson in postseason form is scary. I mean, it's very, very scary. So I feel like that's going to happen. I feel like Florida's just going to I don't even know what's going to happen with Florida. They better hide the cleats from Alabama players because they're going to throw them all over the field. But, folks, with that said, that about wraps up the show. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's a little bit shorter than normal. Catch us next Tuesday. We're going to be talking more things. Of course, that's going to be the recap of this past weekend, upcoming weekend's games. We'll know the landscape at that point. We'll know everything about it. We'll probably have a Heisman Trophy guy at that point. This season has flown by, but at the same time, it feels like it's lasted a million weeks. So thank you so much for supporting 4th and 16. Again, if you like what you saw, please go subscribe and hit that like button. Hit the notification bell so you can get our stuff every day. Also, make sure to follow us over on Facebook, like the page as well. And then you can follow me on Twitter at Ellis Tolbert. And that's all it is right there. Be sure to catch Locked On Clemson if you want to hear more Clemson content. That's Locked On Clemson. That's a podcast. You can get that wherever you get your podcasts. As always, it's great to be a Clemson Tiger. I'll see you next